Happy Friday. Welcome back to Mets Daily. I'm your host, Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Live. Smash that thumbs up on this video. Hit that subscribe button below, everybody. Thank you for your support. Subscribe to my YouTube at Jake Brown Live. Scan this code, become a Mets Daily Insider for just $5 a month. Let's start off by saying happy 32nd birthday to Francisco Lindor. Happy birthday to Francisco Lindor. We also, I didn't make it a graphic because it's really nothing, but the Mets have signed Jackson Clough. It's got a cool name, Clough. If he ever made it, there'd be so many things around the name Clough. But Jackson Clough, the Mets have signed to a minor league deal. He was with the AAA Washington Nationals Rochester affiliate last year. He's been a career minor leaguer, mostly plays middle infield, second base, and shortstop. He is 28, will be 29 years old in December. Probably will just be a piece in AAA. Maybe if four guys get hurt, he plays. I wouldn't lose sleep over this. I know people see this and be like, Sleepy Stearns. These are guys on, the very back end of the roster, maybe not even on the 40-man roster. So they've signed Jackson Clough to a minor league deal. Will Francisco Lindor, be joined by Cody Bellinger? Cody Bellinger is a free agent. He's the guy that we mentioned on here. And, the Mets are reportedly interested in Cody Bellinger, and why wouldn't they be? Here's my issue with Bellinger, and I've talked about it, Jekyll and Hyde player, but also his agent, Scott Boras. And the Mets are already talking with Boras about Alonso, and, that's a name we'll continue mentioning every day. But Bellinger's agent, Boras, meaning he's going to be seeking a probably ridiculous deal for Bellinger. And Bellinger's a great player, and Bellinger's coming off a great season last year with the Yankees. 29 homers, 98 RBIs, 272, 334 on base, 13 stolen bases. Had a great year. 5.1 WAR. Now, you have to factor in the ballpark, of course, playing in Yankee Stadium in that short porch. But, Bellinger's put together 3 straight consecutive solid seasons. 18-78 with a 325 on base the year before. In 2023 with the Cubs, 26-97 with a 307 average, 356 on base with 20 stolen bases. His 162 game averages in his 9-year career are 32-97 with a 334 on base. So if you average his career out. Now, some of that's inflated by the first couple of years where he was great, 39-97 at 21 years old in 2017 and 47-115 in 2019. His career averages are solid. He is a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde guy year in and year out, though. But what the Mets are going to like about him and why the Mets should be considering him, and I've talked about, his positional flexibility. If Carson Bench does work out, you can play Bellinger at first. If he works out and you move Nimmo to DH, you can play Bellinger in left. So Bellinger can play 3 positions pretty well where he gives you a lot of flexibility based on how your prospects are developing. And that's why I think the Mets should be talking to Boras about Bellinger. Let's see what the number is. He is 30 years old, still pretty much in his prime. He's been around the league for a decade, got to the big leagues at just 21 years old and shined early in his career out in Hollywood. But let's see. Guy's a big city player. What I like about him, he's won, a championship. He's a big city guy. Dodgers, Cubs, Yankees. He went from LA, Chicago to New York. This is a guy who's only played in the biggest stages. And that's why I think the Mets are also interested. Winner, makes the playoffs every year, wins every year, and he's played in the biggest markets in the country. And I think that says something about a player. You can win here, you can win anywhere. Well, listen, he's won everywhere. So I like that about Cody Bellinger. So I'm fascinated to see if the Mets will sign him. Let us know in the comments. Do you think the Mets should sign Cody Bellinger? We talked about it yesterday, Jeff McNeil, and there was an update. We talked about his injury. Now, this could just be, bogus, but the Mets are taking inquiries. Apparently, there's been teams that have showed interest in Jeff McNeil and, walk him to the airport. If that's actually true and there's interest on Jeff McNeil, the Mets have to do, I said, there's a 0% chance Jeff McNeil's on the 2026 Mets. If you go into 2026 with Jeff McNeil on this roster, you had a bad offseason no matter what else you did. So I think if that's actually true and there is some interest, the Mets got to bite the bullet, maybe eat $8 million and trade him. And why there's interest is he's an expiring contract and he does have positional flexibility. Teams could move him around a little bit. So if there is trade interest, the Mets should certainly be fielding offers, take the best offer, and call it a day. And hey, if you can get a team to pay his entire $16 million, again, walk him to the airport. Jeff McNeil, I think, is going to be gone. And, that was good news to hear that there's interest. It could be bogus, but we'll buy it for now and say that there's interest. So let's see. Maybe next week Jeff McNeil's traded, but the Mets got to make sure they get this done and trade Jeff McNeil. The Mets Hall of Fame candidates for 2026 were announced as well. Carlos Beltran, Bobby Valentine, and Lee Mazzilli. Lee Mazzilli I found a little bit intriguing. I think Bobby Valentine, yes. Great manager, beloved manager. Mets uniform, 100% makes sense. Carlos Beltran, yes. Carlos Beltran, unbelievable career. Should be a Hall of Famer. Carlos Beltran, yes. Lee Mazzilli, I think he had a solid Mets career. I think with Lee Mazzilli, it's more so probably a longevity thing. Lee Mazzilli played 10 years with the Mets, 76 through 82, and then he came back to the Mets in 86 through 89. So Mazzilli being a World Series champion, having decent numbers in a Mets uniform, 264 average, 357 on base over those 10 years, 68 homers, 353 RBIs, 152 stolen bases. I think the longevity, the good memories, being a World Series champion, I think he's beloved. I think it makes sense. Now, if you told me Lee Mazzilli would never make the Mets Hall of Fame, I would say, yeah, that makes sense too. I think at this point, if you were a solid Met, they're going to put you in the Mets Hall of Fame. They're not going to put Benny Agbayani. He's a beloved Met, but not a Hall of Fame Met. But I guess Lee Mazzilli being on a championship roster and the longevity reason he gets in. My mom went to high school with Lee Mazzilli. Always said he wasn't the brightest. I believe she tutored him or they're friends. I don't know what the relationship was there. But, Lee Mazzilli and Mama Brown, I believe Lincoln High School in Brooklyn. So shout out to them. Beltran, Bobby V, can't wait to see that. I've met Beltran. I've met Lee. I've interviewed Bobby Valentine. Fantastic memories of Carlos Beltran and Bobby V. And I hope Bobby V shows up in the mustache and disguise. That'll be fun. All right, let's get to your comments, folks, on a Friday here from Thursday's Mets Daily Show. Appreciate it. Keep leaving those comments. Keep following me on all socials at Jake Brown Live. Smash that thumbs up. Let's go. From Dice Club, Jacob, the Mets split ways with Alonso, Diaz, Marte, McNeil, and Sang. Approximately how much money would then come off the books? And then if you were GM, which free agents would you target to improve the team from this money? Well, McNeil $16 million. So if all that's eaten, that's $16 million. If Sang comes off the books, that's $15 million. That's $31 million. Marte is already off the books, so I don't really think you factor him in. Right now, I believe the Mets are around 240 after arbitration eligible players. Diaz and Alonso also are already off the books, but so in terms of guys on the books, the only ones on the books are McNeil and Senga. So that's 15 plus, that's about $31 million, $31 to $32 million between those two would come off the books. Alonso's off, that would 25 to 30. Diaz 20, and Marte was 20, but again, he's off the books. So right now the Mets had about $100 million or so come off the books after factoring in the arbitration eligible players. Which free agent would you target? I mean, that's something I've been talking about every day. Bellinger's a guy I target. Yandy Diaz in a trade is someone I target. Akamoto is someone I target. Diaz, I think you got to bring back, though. And the other report yesterday, now we've spoken a lot about Diaz, but he says he's 50-50 to come back. Now, I think what that means is he thinks there's a chance the Mets aren't going to give him the contract. He wants to do what's best for his family. Edwin Diaz wants the best deal imaginable. He wants 5 years, $100 million plus. And if the Mets aren't going to offer it, I think someone will. And I think it's a grave mistake for the Mets to not offer it. I've said it on here. Edwin Diaz has to be back. And I think it'll be very, very frustrating if the Mets don't pony up and pay Edwin Diaz. From Arcade Perfect Reviews, Nimmo is the guy I thought would be the smart move to first base. Don't get me wrong, since moving to left field, he's become a decently average fielder, but he's old and getting older. First base, much less movement than the outfield. He has the height and ability to play first. 33-year-old, not a 27-year-old Soto. Yeah, I've seen that mentioned before. It's not a bad point. What I worry about Nimmo, the plantar fasciitis, with that foot, with some neck issues he's had, scooping balls at first, I don't find him to be the most athletic guy in the world. And I know Pete Alonso is, and a lot of first basemen aren't. I don't see Nimmo at first working. I just feel like his frame, the way he fields, I feel like he's built much more for a corner outfield spot than first base. I understand the logic. I personally just don't think just the way he plays defense it would ever work at first base, but maybe I'm wrong. From Cristiano Barriqua, God bless you, JB. R.I.P. Larry Brooks. Go Mets. Appreciate it. Yes, rest in peace, Larry Brooks. I know I did a long tribute to start the show yesterday, but much deserved for Larry. So thinking about Larry's family today. From Mr. G, 1959. Jake, I've been looking at your podcast for a while now, and I'm totally convinced that there are so many idiots send you comments who do not understand baseball or business. I call it revisionist baseball. This is where you have these players who they all want back, like Wilmer Flores, for instance, never looking forward, always looking back. This is what's happening with Alonso now. Well, appreciate the support, Mr. G. Thanks for watching us. I'm not going to call people idiots. I get it. There's an emotional tie to Pete Alonso. The home run record, the polar bear. I think people became more tied to him when he saved the season in Milwaukee, when he hit that homer. I think that was his signature moment because we all wrote him out of town before that at bat, and I still would not like him back because I remember that season. And I think that home run made it more of an emotional connection to Pete than ever. And then once he broke the record this year, the things he said, I think he said all the right things. And even last night, another thing I didn't mention, Juan Soto saying the right things. He also kind of quietly said Pete might not be back, but basically saying, I hope wherever he ends up, he's happy. He said, I'd love to have more memories and more fun with Pete. You got to remember, and this is where I kind of laugh sometimes, guys will always say the right thing. They don't want drama. Do you think Juan Soto's going to say at the awards ceremony last night, yeah, I hope Pete's happy wherever he goes. I'd rather him not come back. I mean, I always find it funny, like, what do you expect his answer to be there? Like, I think we read too much into what people say. And Alonso said the same thing. I love New York. I've represented New York. I think we read a little too much into what they say when really it's just called public relations. It's called saying the right thing, but maybe thinking something else. We all make sure we say the right things, but in our mind, we're sometimes thinking something else. So that's sports. And that's why it becomes a major story when a guy says something they shouldn't. So I think people have to remember that when they see these quotes, they hear these quotes, that's not always what they're thinking. They're just saying the right thing. But yeah, we got to look forward. If you look backwards, you saw a team that lost 5 out of 7 years. And one of those years they lost in the wild card round. They went past the wild card round 1 out of 7 times. This team spends too much to want that. So you got to start looking forward. From XX Nike Elite Gaming, I'm okay with Tyrone everyday center field. Every bat in the line will be a stud. His defense is worth it as long as we get 2 of Cattell, Belly, Naylor. I disagree with that. I think Tyrone Taylor is great defensively, good teammate, horrible hitter. Tyrone Taylor cannot be your everyday center fielder. And if that's the Mets situation, even with those other guys, they're not in a good spot. Because, listen, you're trying to compete with the likes of the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Phillies. You can't do that with Tyrone Taylor being an everyday player. It's just unacceptable. From JM Valentine, Lowell, you're starting to sound like our guy at Talking Mets podcast. Getting frustrated with some Mets fans that are so beyond reality. I'm with you about Pete. He's great, but we haven't won crap with him. I could not see him making that play Vladdy did in the World Series. Hell, he could barely throw to first. You could see in his face how much he has to concentrate not to throw the ball away. He looks like a minor leaguer learning to play the position when he's making any kind of play that involves throwing the ball. Love his power, but we need more complete players. 100%. Yeah, I don't know about that show. I'm not sure. I think the host has said some bad things about me, so I don't know if I'm really a fan of him, even though I've met him before. So, we're not going to shout out people that, have not been great to me. But yes, Pete has not been a great fielder. From Jay Bakes 100, Jake, I'm with you on Alonso, Nimmo, and McNeil. Time to move on and change the clubhouse energy. It needs to be changed. The core is rotten, and if you don't think so, you haven't really paying attention. Radiant Valorant, OP says Buxton, Naylor, Akamoto still keep bench. Framber, King, Imai, Trade, Sanga, Peterson, McNeil, Nimmo, possibly he's not. I mean, listen, that's Radiant. It's not happening. I mean, you're not getting Framber, King. I assume you mean one of the 3. If that's the case, fine. But all these things, this is a fantasy land. That's. I mean, Michael King is getting 20 to 25 million a year. Framber Val's getting 25 to 30 million. Imai's getting 30 million. The Mets don't have the money to make this. Listen, I love this to be the team. This is just a fantasy land roster. But I appreciate it as a fantasy land. From Drew Scopelitis, Bruxton is always hurt. Yeah, that's the issue. But, he is cheap. From Carlos, let Alonso go. Trade McNeil and Nimmo. Get Naylor, Buxton, Martin, Bregman. You're a way better team, 100%. From BX Dadoff, LGM. Let's go Mets. From Elite Gaming, leave Scuba alone. Get 2 decent starter. Resign Diaz. Let Pete go. Trade buyout. Cattell and pursue Naylor. Mets offseason really not that complicated. Beatty, everyday third base. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound complicated, but it will be. Trades get complicated, so we'll see what happens. You're watching Mets Daily. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'll have some good news I'll talk about next week about my life. Looking forward to discussing that. Thank you for watching. Smash that thumbs up, subscribe, share, and follow me at Jake Brown Live. Have a great weekend. Let's go Mets.